Welcome back to Ring Generals. My name is Bruce Snyder, and I am really psyched to be here with tonight's guest. He's the big man in OVW, known as Zoe.
Oh yeah, that's me.
Nice to have you here.
Great to meet you. Good to see you, Bruce.
You know, I've covered you for a little over a year now, and what's interesting is when we started, you were someone that the fans cheered.
Right.
Now you're wearing the black hat. You're someone that the fans boo a lot of times. What I find really interesting about this, though, is a lot of times when a guy switches from face to heel or heel to face, their tactics stay the same. You've completely changed everything. When you were the good guy, Zoe, you were dancing in the ring a lot. You were smiling and waving at fans. Now, as someone with the legacy of Brutality, and we'll talk about them in a second, a lot more harder edge. Talk about that a little bit. Is that something you've done on purpose?
I mean, the thing is that when you're a good guy, at least for me, I felt like I had to be a cheerleader, you know? I felt like I needed to do things to get everybody excited, to make everybody feel comfortable, make everybody feel like they're gonna have a good time. When you have the physical presence that I do, like I've gone through my entire life, we're talking about in the ring and out of the ring, having to present yourself in a way that makes people feel comfortable. You know what I mean? If I walk up on you on the street, you don't know anything about me. You know, I'm almost 6 foot, 325 pounds, a lot of muscle, kind of burly, deep voice a little bit. People don't always feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. I have darker skin. People don't always feel comfortable with me. So to make you feel relaxed, I have to do certain things. So maybe that's putting on a little song and dance and wave and kiss some babies to let you know I'm okay. Now that I'm with my family again, now that I'm back with the legacy of Brutality,
you don't have to worry about that.
I don't have to put on the show. I don't have to put on the song and dance. I can be me.
But that's interesting. You were very aware of, for lack of a better term, your body language. You would make sure not to come up on someone. You'd make sure to give them their space. And, I'm a big guy also, certainly not as big as you, but I know a lot of times, if you get into someone's space even a little bit and you're a bigger guy, all of a sudden weird vibes go off.
Absolutely. It's kind of like, naturally I've just known the code switch, you know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of my upbringing. So being with LOB again, it's just something that comes natural. Now you made a point about some of the fans cheering, some of the fans booing. I actually still have fans on Facebook, the smart ones that hit me up, that are like, I just want you to know that I was cheering for you. Even though there's the others that continue to boo for whatever reasons. And they all have their reasons. Some people like strawberry ice cream, some people like chocolate ice cream.
You know why I think a lot of fans are still cheering for you? And it might be you as opposed to, with no disrespect to the LOB, and don't tell them anything because I don't want them mad at me, because you do things in the ring that you don't expect from a guy who's 6 foot, is that what he said?
Yep.
300 plus pounds. Yep. And we're talking about moving about almost like a luchador. I mean, you fly a lot. You're in the air a lot, kicks, using your legs a lot, and that's the first thing I noticed about you that made me say, this cat's a little different.
Yeah, that's true, man. So I like to be able to present myself different. I feel like there's so many cookie cutter versions of what a wrestler should be, what a super heavyweight should be, what a good guy should be, what a bad guy should be. Everybody wants to be the next John Cena, the next Hulk Hogan. I want to be the current Big Zoe. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean that there's not people I admire, people that I look up to. But if I have the ability to do something to make you go, wow, how do you do that? Then I think that's what I come for. That's why people pay the money. That's why people buy the tickets, to be entertained, to be impressed, to be amazed, to be able to look at somebody and say, I want to be like that guy.
But how hard is it to do that? What you're talking about not just takes a lot of physical training and physical endurance, but I'm sure there's a lot of mental preparation going in as well.
There is. But with perfect practice comes perfect performance, you know what I mean? Like, how hard is it to walk? You know what I mean? Like, after a while, I just know how to kick my legs. After a while, I know how to do a back handspring. After a while, I know how to do certain things because repetition. So for me, it's just all about the placement. That's the only thing that really takes the thoughtfulness into it. It's not about the moves. The moves come simple to me. That's the easy part. It's about what's the perfect place to put the move to get the best reaction, to get the best response, to garner the victory in some cases.
You're being humble. I want you to brag on yourself for a moment, okay? How much work are we talking about? First of all, work in terms of training, physical training. What's a typical training session like for you, hours in the session and then days of the week?
Yeah. So the funny thing is that a lot of the training that's gotten me to where I am now is the stuff that I did as a kid, honestly. And at this point, like in sports psychology, I learned it was like 10,000 hours of doing something before you become proficient.
Before it becomes a habit
yeah.
rather than something you're learning to do.
Right, and it might be 1,000 hours. It's been a while since I was sports psychology, but for me, like as far as my gymnastic abilities and my athleticism, I'll be honest, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a Ninja Turtle. I wanted to be a Power Ranger. So I practiced doing round-offs. I practiced, like, I watched the Olympics and the gymnastics. I'd watch that stuff. And even though I wasn't a small kid, you know, I learned how to do all that stuff. I'd be in my backyard, just in case there's a casting call for the next Black Ranger, I'm gonna go ahead and know how to do these moves and practice these kicks to where now as a grown man, you know, this stuff is second nature. So as far as my physical abilities, as far as like my strength, that comes from high school, well, even middle school. Because when I would watch WCW and WWF, back and forth, I'd watch it and I'd be sitting in my bedroom with my weights, just lifting my weights between commercial breaks, getting pumped up, thinking, okay, I'm gonna be Triple H, you know, thinking, okay, I'm gonna be the next Mark Henry, you know. So I would do all the training then. So now at this point in the game, as far as my wrestling ability, of course, I sat under the learning tree of Rip Rogers. You know, I was in his training school consistently every weekend, pretty much, for 2 years. Actually, a lot of people don't realize this, but part of the legacy Brutality is even before that, I was trained by Cash Flow for a year. So he was actually one of my trainers.
Gosh, so much to disseminate off this. Okay,
Right.
First of all, before I ask you anything else, was it Donatello? Which of the which of the ones did you relate to?
Michelangelo.
Michelangelo.
Yeah, he's the one that likes to have a good time, you know. So I think as a kid, here's the funny thing: as a kid, you look up to the good guys. You know, everybody wants to be Hulk Hogan. They want to eat their vitamins, say their prayers and stuff as a kid, you know. But then when you're an adult, you kind of side with Macho Man. You know what I mean? So as a kid, I wanted to be Michelangelo because he was the fun-loving one. As an adult, I kind of understand where Raphael's coming from, why he has that chip on his shoulder.
Wonderful.
Why, you know what I mean? So you start to understand, you get a little more salty. So I'd say as a kid when I was training and going through all that stuff, it was Michelangelo.
You realize from now on I'm going to call you Ninja Turtle.
that's Hosea's thing.
Yeah, that's true. I don't want
no
to
gimmick
jump on
infringement
that. No gimmick infringement. Good point. Second thing, you were talking about being younger and wanting to do all these gymnastic moves. Did anyone say to you, did anyone try and talk you out of it by saying, dude, you just don't have the body structure to be a classic gymnast, you know, as opposed to you look at someone like AJZ, who's leaner, svelter, no disrespect intended, but just from a body standpoint, you know, he looks more like a gymnast. Did anyone say to you, your head and mind is in the wrong place? Or were you encouraged?
Yes and no, a little from column A, a little from column B. I'd say for the most part, I've been supported in doing what I do as long as I do it well. But most importantly, is all about the time and the placement. So guys like Rip Rogers, smartest people in the business, he'll tell me stories about how he'd see Bam Bam Bigelow doing cartwheels and he'd tell him, you're too mean, you're too scary looking to be running around doing that. At the same breath, Rip's never told me, don't do a back handspring, don't do a cartwheel. It's all about the time and the placement. Does it make sense?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if I'm gonna claim to be a big bad guy, like that's another thing you'll notice is that these days with the LOB, I can still do a back handspring. I can still do all that stuff, but why? You don't see me doing that as much anymore.
Right.
There's a reason.
But that goes back to my original thing where how you've changed your style and how smart I think that is rather than just taking the lazy way and saying, well, I've changed sides of the fence, but I'm going to still do the same thing. You've obviously put a lot of thought into this. And that's the part that I give you a lot of credit for.
I appreciate that. I mean, I have so when I made the determination that I was going to go ahead and become a solo act when I left the LOB first time, because of course we was established in 2016.
Right, so
This
you
is
were
our
part of the
second role.
legacy of Brutality a few years ago. You left, you went solo, and became someone the fans really cheered for. And continue
Sure.
with your story.
Yeah. So at that point, like I told you, I had to be a standout act. You know,
Right.
with LOB, there's so much talent, so much depth, and we're just a family. We are still. You know, we're a family, and that's why like all the stuff you see on screen, it's not an act. This is really us just hanging out, kicking it, enjoying each other's company, and everything we do is in sync because we like feel each other's presence. So when I was a solo act, I'd have to do a little bit more to make sure that I'm standing out from the other solo acts, from the other competition. So that might require me to do a back handspring or to do X, Y, and Z to get over a little bit more. Now the reality is, now that we have the numbers game, I have so many people watching my back. There's no reason for me to exert myself to the point of getting all tired and winded because I'm trying to dance around and entertain the fans.
Right.
At this point, you love me or you hate me, but we're still gonna do what we can to be successful.
All right, for a lot of our viewers who are outside the Louisville and outside the Kentucky area, why don't you tell people what the LOB, the Legacy of Brutality, is all about? First, let's start with everybody in, because it's kind of like, you know, you go back to, you were talking about old school WWE, or before that WCW, where you had the Horsemen. It's a group that functions as one, that watches each other's back, and they do it in a very aggressive way.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, we are a family. Above all, that's what we are. We're a family. So we start off with, of course, our fearless leader, our manager, Josh Ashcraft, the guy that takes care of us. He makes sure that we have all of our needs met. And this isn't just an act in the ring. This is real. Like, hey, did anybody forget anything in your locker room? Okay, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna get your shirt. I'll make sure to get your vest. I'll make sure to take care of stuff. What are we gonna have for dinner? Because my group, my family, we have dinner in the locker rooms. You know, we make sure that we're gonna work hard and we're gonna party hard too. So Josh
he's
is
the
always
manager,
that guy.
and he's doing kind of what Paul Ellering did with the Road Warriors. He's
Absolutely.
taking an active interest.
He's our guy, making
Right.
sure that, and even outside of OVW, if there's some booking opportunities, some promotions, then he's going to make sure to make those connections, set that stuff up. He's constantly thinking, what is it going to take to make us feel comfortable? Whether that's rebuilding our locker room and making the facilities that so that we can be able to relax and feel good. So then, of course, you have my big brother Hosea, along with myself, one of the first members of LOB. So the Hood Ninja, he says no promo because everything he says is 100% real.
Yeah, you don't hear Hosea talking a whole lot, but dude gets his message across with very little words.
Actions speak louder than words.
In his case,
you know.
they sure do. Yes, sir.
Now, if you are lucky enough to be his Facebook friend, because I think there's like 1,000 friend requests that are just hanging out there, people he's had to clear because he doesn't have room for everybody, then you can read about and see how articulate he is. If you've seen him in other promotions, he'll cut a promo. You can hear how articulate it is. It's not a matter of him not being able to speak. It's a matter
Of him choosing not
choosing,
to.
yeah,
Right.
especially when we're with the family. Just like I can do a lot of stuff, I can do a lot of really cool, flashy moves, but I don't need to. I can punch you in the mouth now, and then Cash Flow pick up the pieces. Jay Bradley take you out. Speaking of which, let's go on to my big brother Cash Flow.
Cash Flow, the big guy.
So he is a guy who, like I said, he trained me. You know, I went to SWE, you know, Southern Wrestling Entertainment. It was a federation that he had running out of Shepherdsville. Whenever I first decided to return to the wrestling business, about 6 years ago, I went to IWA Mid-South, and they were having a reverse battle royal. First thing I did was I saw Cash Flow. I went and I punched him in the mouth. Afterwards, you know, we locked up during the match. Of course, we fought back and forth. When we got to the locker room, he said, "Hey, man, that took some balls. I respect a guy like that." So he's like, "I'd like to be able to work with you some more." So he let me know about SWE. And of course, like I said, I'd wrestled around before, but you know, he could still say that I was a little rough around the edges. So he's like, you know, hey, let's go ahead and start working on this. So I went and I started training up under him, sat under that learning tree. So that's Cash Flow, somebody like Hosea with 20 plus years in the business.
And let me interrupt you for 1 second.
Absolutely.
Ric Flair, of course, everyone knows, has hard chops. Cash Flow is right up there with him. Cash Flow might not quite have the international reputation of Ric Flair, but that dude has some of the hardest chops I've ever seen. Guys' chests just turn red and then pink when he's done with them, and he chops. Let's just say he doesn't care, how much bigger than he is than anyone else, and he's bigger than most guys.
That's true.
He'll go to town on your chest.
That's true. And like when I was training up under him, we would have we'd have chop class. So he trained me how to take a chop, how to give a chop.
So anyone who thinks those chops don't hurt or are fake or anything like that,
that lets you know that wrestling in and of itself is not fake. If you can fake a chop, if you can fake getting slapped in your chest and pretty much almost having a heart attack and having the blood come out, then come on, man.
Right.
So then, of course, our newest addition to LOB is Jay Bradley, who's somebody who has international recognition. He's been around in Japan. He's been on Impact. He's had his time on WWE. He's been around. He's somebody that OVW, he's been a two-time OVW champion,
right.
I believe. He's somebody with some name recognition, street cred, and he doesn't mind getting his hands dirty. He wasn't a part of the first incarnation of LOB, but we knew that he was somebody, kind of a hired henchman. He would do whatever it took to get money. And anybody knows anything about LOB knows that we are about our finances. We are about doing whatever it takes to become successful, which is one of the big reasons why I made the determination to go ahead and go back home with the family, because I was doing all right on my solo act.
Are you having fun though?
Oh, this is probably the most fun I've had in a long time.
I can tell.
Absolutely.
I can tell. You're out there, you're taking no prisoners, taking names, taking no prisoners, and leaving a path behind you of destruction.
Absolutely.
Having said all that, the man in front of me, and by the way, let's just tell everybody you weren't born Zoe. Can we tell everyone your birth name?
Yep, Kawan Owens. Kawan Desmond Owens, yeah.
Where did Zoe come from? And then I'll get to the point I was gonna.
Okay, so Zoe is actually short for Zeta Omicron. So I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and I went to school from undergraduate degree at Murray State University. So, and that's where the 345th chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha was founded, so the Zeta Omicron chapter. So in homage to my fraternity, I decided to become Big Zoe. There was actually a guy who I trained for a short time under, Frank the Tank, who's actually a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. Back in the day when I wrestled as a teenager, I was Diablo. So when I came back, like I said, 6 years ago, 2014, Frank said, well, what do you want your name to be? I said, I don't know, man. I hadn't really thought about it. At this point, we're already in the locker room, about to go out a few minutes later. Didn't even have anything. And I just so happened to be wearing an Alpha shirt. He's like, yo, Zoe, you be Zoe, be Big Zoe. I was like, all right, we'll go with it. Didn't necessarily think that, fast forward 6 years later, I'd still be Big Zoe. I just figured for that night, I'll be Zoe, but it's kind of stuck and it works.
Has.
A lot of people assume, oh, is it Alonzo or no, my name's Kawan, and Zoe for Zeta Omicron.
As tough as this guy is in the ring, he is just a big, gentle guy out of the ring, and I say that with a lot of respect. Tell everyone what you do when you're not in the ring. This is the other reason why I wanted to get him on to Ring Generals, because he's got such a unique story. So, big guy, what do you do outside of the ring that ends up helping a lot of people?
All right, so I'm actually a social worker. So I got my undergrad from Murray State in social work, my master's from U of L in social work. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker, LCSW. I'm currently a therapist at the VA, so I'm a federal employee. So let me go down my list. I started off as a child protective services worker in Trimble County for 4 years. I went on to work at 7 counties. Now you guys know what it is, Centerstone, as a therapist for 4 years. Became a supervisor there to train other people to become therapists. Worked at Weston School as a middle school counselor and a dorm dad for a couple years. That was a great experience, a lot of fun. And then, I've been on the trajectory to, I had a professor tell me that if working with veterans is a great opportunity. So 13, 14 years ago, I kind of ingrained that in the back of my head. And I said, if and when I get the opportunity to become a worker at the VA, that's what I was going to do. So I provide therapy for veterans that have PTSD, depression, anxiety. And also on the weekends, I have a private practice where I see civilians and children also. So I'm a mental health therapist.
Is it what you thought it would be, or is it a lot different?
I enjoy it. So, I don't know. I guess I enjoy it as much as I thought I would.
I'm sure you do. You've been doing it for so long now.
Yeah.
But does it still surprise you to this day?
Absolutely. And I think that's what keeps you coming. That's what keeps me in this profession. You watch it on TV and you have an idea of what a shrink is or what a therapist is. And I feel like it's so different. Like, when the way that I operate and when the doors close and I'm providing therapy for folks, it's just having a relationship, just like what we're doing now. We're just having a conversation. That's all therapy is being able to have a conversation with somebody, connect with them, build a rapport, and then be able to figure out, all right, so what are some difficulties you're having? So let's go through this list of difficulties and figure out what is it you want to overcome and working on a game plan together. It's kind of like being a personal trainer in the gym.
What does it feel like when you're able to help someone and you can see by the look on their face or the tone in their voice that you made a difference?
It's a game changer, man. There's nothing like it.
It helps you as much as it helps them?
Yeah. I actually said this the other day. I said, sometimes my therapy is providing therapy.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like being able to be that conduit for change. Like I mentioned, it's kind of like being a personal trainer. Like, I don't lift any of the weights for you. I don't run any of the miles for you. It's the client doing all the hard work. I'm just kind of there to support so I can spot you, make sure the weights don't fall on your neck. So it's you putting in the hard work, I'm just there to support. And sometimes you can't necessarily even tell who you're impacting or based on their faces or based on what they're saying. I had a session the other day where somebody I saw 3 times, I hadn't seen them for 9 months. So I just assumed, okay, well, I guess things didn't work out. They just moved on. They didn't like me as a therapist. And the kid comes back, 15-year-old kid, and he lets me know, he's like, no, actually, those 3 sessions were all I needed. And at that point, I looked at you as a role model, and I've been watching you as a wrestler and watching you on YouTube, and I've been following you. And I took your advice, and the advice you gave me helped me to fix my attitude. I started to change my behaviors. I started to improve my grades. My family started giving me more freedom. And things have been working out good. So it's like, you never know. Like, sometimes people just drop off the face of the earth and you're like, well, I guess that didn't work out. And then you see them at Walgreens like, oh my God, I love you so much. You're such an awesome therapist. You changed my life. And I've gotten off drugs and I'm doing this. And I've gotten a phone call from somebody that I worked with 10 years ago as a CPS worker. I was a part of removing her children. And she reached out and said, I want you to know that you saved my life. And I thank you because I'm no longer on drugs. And although my kids are no longer with me, they got adopted into a good home and I'm still able to have a connection with them. And now I have new baby daughters. So being able to have that intimate connection to people's lives, that's what I do it for. And the crazy thing is that's the same reason I wrestle, to be able to establish that relationship and that connection with people.
Well, what I was thinking, it's funny you should say that, is I'm sure a lot of people are thinking therapist, wrestler, could
Right.
there be any two things farther apart? But wrestlers have to use a lot of psychology. It's
Absolutely.
not just physical. In fact, if it's only physical, it's going to be a very dry match.
Absolutely.
There has to be a lot of psychology and a lot of heavy brain stuff, for lack of a better word.
Absolutely.
Just like, when you're being a therapist.
Yeah, and it's like Al Snow is, again, one of my mentors, one of my
The owner
trainers.
of OVW.
Yeah. He always says, what's the why? It's not the what. You can be the most awesome athletic specimen out there doing 450, 50, whatever, 640 flips or whatever. But if it doesn't make sense, if the psychology is not there, if the placing and the positioning and why you're doing it doesn't make sense, then it's a waste of time.
You know what I've noticed during our entire interview, and we're about to wrap things up? You've been smiling the entire time. This is a man who's happy with, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but it appears you are happy with what you're doing in life, both in the ring and out of the ring. And for you to find something like that, that makes you one of the lucky ones.
I'm living the
for a lot of
dream.
work. Yeah.
Rick would always say, I'm living the dream, baby. That's where I'm at.
He might make you boo him when he's in the ring, but I think we can all agree he deserves a big cheer out of the ring. Zoe, Kawan, did I pronounce that right?
Yep, Kawan. Yep,
It's
absolutely.
a pleasure. Continued success with everything, my man.
Appreciate you, man. Absolutely. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you. Now, after we turn the camera, he's obviously going to talk with me and tell me what's wrong with me.
Well, what's right with me? I don't know.